Today on Truths That Transform.
For it is our responsibility to do whatever good citizenship requires.
In 2020, over 25 million evangelicals, these are active church attendees, who were eligible to vote were not registered to vote. That actually increased in 22 to 32 million evangelicals.
It's the Church of Jesus Christ
Welcome to Truths That Transform, a production of Coral Ridge Ministries, celebrating our 50th year proclaiming truth on television, radio, and now the web, and through every means possible. I'm Pastor Rob Pacienza. For many years, it was common to hear famous evangelical preachers telling their hearers that Christians should not be concerned with political issues because politics is worldly. But thanks to our founder, Dr. D. James Kennedy, and others like him, American Christians rediscovered the truth that God has called us to be salt and light here on earth too, and that we are to teach the nations all that God has commanded. On today's program, we'll look at our obligation to affect the civil laws we live under. You'll discover how words are redefined by elites to keep us complacent. And we begin by looking at some of the forces trying to keep you from voting your faith at the ballot box and what we're doing about it. Our very own John Rabe has more.
There are a lot of forces at work to keep pro-life, pro-family Christians from voting, or at least to neutralize their votes. As journalist Megan Basham demonstrated in her recent book, Shepherds for Sale, there's a lot of left-wing money flowing into the evangelical world to move Christians away from clear issues like life, marriage, and gender, and point them to biblically murkier areas like environmentalism.
Secular left foundations funded by hard left billionaires, names you know, like George Soros, the Clinton Foundation, Mark Zuckerberg, have been funneling money into evangelical ministries in order to move that all-important evangelical vote on all manner of issues, from gun control to climate change to immigration policy. So you could really say that these are secular left organizations co-opting the church by creating front groups and AstroTurf campaigns. So I also spend a lot of time in the book tracking that money. One of the things you see is that issues that are biblical moral issues, things like the sanctity of life, things like the created order of male and female, the sanctity of marriage as between one man and one woman. When you have a pastor who is starting to define those things as political, while in turn taking political issues that are very debatable, like immigration or climate change legislation or gun control, issues that we can as Christians certainly debate in good faith and argue about, what God would see Christians do in terms of voting on those issues. But if they're defining those issues as gospel issues, those are one of the huge red flags when they're swapping those things out.
And so it's sneaky, it's underhanded, and we need to be aware of it and on alert for it. And so if you hear something from your pastor or a parachurch ministry that you think doesn't really add up, it may be because it's funded by one of these organizations. This is something that's been planned for a long, long time, decades in the making, and we're now seeing the fruit of this in so many churches that are walking away from biblical foundational truths.
The organization Evangelicals for Harris has tried to split the Christian vote by portraying a vote for Kamala Harris as a vote for civility, tolerance, and love. They did so even at Harris's convention, which featured a Planned Parenthood van on the premises that performed dozens of chemical abortions, sacrificing the children of Democrat attendees. Many faith leaders say this is no time for apathy, but rather is a crucial moment for biblical clarity and prioritization.
What we found is this: in 2020, over 25 million evangelicals, these are active church attendees, who were eligible to vote were not registered to vote. That actually increased in 22 to 32 million evangelicals. And what we've seen is this: there is an apathy that has overtaken the church It started in the pulpit and it's worked into the pews.
Dr. Chris Leader is the president of Vote Your Faith, which is partnering with Coral Ridge this year.
Vote Your Faith came about back in 2018 as we began to look at the reality that so many evangelicals, active church attendees, were not registered to vote, and even those who were registered to vote were not actively engaging in the voting process. And so we started going after cultivating this audience of church attendees so that we could rally them to vote according to biblical foundations.
Chris Leader says that it's especially crucial this year with so many society-altering measures on the ballot.
So what we have this election season is a lack of interest on the left to show up and vote for top-level tickets. And so the left has put ballot initiatives in conservative and swing states in order to draw out their base and also to unravel the conservative progress that's been made in these states. And so we see that with abortion, we see it with the legalization of marijuana, and this is all intended to drive up the vote on the left.
In Florida, that especially means fighting Amendment 4 this year, a change to the Florida Constitution that would declare open season on unborn children. Lauren Cooley is the executive director of the Institute for Faith and Culture at Coral Ridge.
Here in Florida, 60% of those voting in the election need to approve it in order for it to be enshrined in the Florida Constitution. It would say that anyone can have an abortion, no age restrictions, parents don't have to give approval, they just have to be notified after the fact. There's no clear definition of what time or place or term that the abortion can take place or not take place, or what medical practitioner should be involved or shouldn't. So this is not something that once passed can be overturned. This goes into our founding documents as a state.
What we're seeing this year is the radicalization of abortion at the state level. And what we've seen over the past 2 years is many states take really great legal steps to protect life in the state. And so what's happening is the left has put these ballot initiatives in 11 states on the issue of abortion to drive up their turnout and voter turnout, but also to unravel what the legislatures and the governors have passed in those states to protect life. And so what we're doing is we're educating the electorate here in Florida on what this amendment actually is. It's an extreme abortion amendment that would literally allow abortion up until the moment of birth. It removes the parental rights and consent, and then it removes all of the safety measures for the woman, like allowing literally a receptionist at a doctor's office or a dental clinic to be able to perform this surgical abortion. And so our effort is really to educate the electorate here in Florida, specifically the faith community, so that they know what they're voting on come November 5th.
It's one example of a church partnership to make a tangible difference. Churches and individual Christians have often been dissuaded from involvement in election issues. But while we shouldn't be partisan, we also must not neglect the political sphere.
I think it's not only okay for Christians to be involved in politics. I think a fair and accurate reading of Scripture is that it's a calling and a responsibility and a duty. And if you go throughout the Bible, Old and New Testament, it is constantly taught that we are to be engaged civically and exercise our rights as a way to glorify God and share the gospel.
The voice of Bible-believing Christians is also in danger of being silenced because of widespread concerns about election security following 2020. But because of concerns expressed at the time, tremendous work has been done to ensure that your vote is secure.
One of the big lessons that we learned coming out of the 2020 election is that conservatives have to start banking their vote. Here's what I mean by that. We had discouraged individuals in 2020 from voting early or from voting by absentee ballot. This year, we need to swamp the vote. What I mean by that is we need to get evangelicals out in the masses voting early, vote by absentee ballot if you need to vote by absentee ballot. If you're sure that you're going to vote on election day, make sure that you actually show up on election day to vote. But we need to bank the vote. I'm incredibly optimistic about what we're facing here in 2024. I think we have a monumental opportunity to course correct a lot of the negative decline that we've seen over the past 4 years. I believe that there's been great election integrity reforms that have taken place over the last really 2 years to protect votes. We want every legal vote to count once. We want to make it easy to vote but hard to cheat. And I believe that we've made great progress in that process.
Partnerships similar to the one between Vote Your Faith and Coral Ridge are the kinds of partnerships that can be replicated by churches of any size across the country to engage Christians on the key ballot issues that the Bible speaks clearly about.
I think that God has called us to participate in the public square and participate in every sphere of culture. There's a lot of different reasons why Christians may not participate, whether they're discouraged and they think their vote and their voice doesn't count, or they're under bad preaching, bad teaching that tells them that if it's not specifically gospel-oriented, it's not evangelical oriented, then there's no reason to participate. I disagree. I think the Bible is clear. We're called to be a part of the civic process, to be a part of shaping culture, and voting is really being a good steward of this excellent resource God has given us, which is to live in such a great country.
With a pivotal election upon us, it is vital that God's people pray for America. We'll send you the 40 Days to the Election Prayer Guide to help you and others lift your hearts in focused, targeted prayer in the run-up to the election. Contact us today and ask for your free prayer guide or sign up online. Just visit crm.tv/election prayer to download your 40 Days to the Election Prayer Guide. When you join the prayer campaign, we'll also send you a daily email providing both a prayer topic and an inspirational reading about the power and efficacy of prayer. Sign up today. Together, let's pray.
There is a lot of confusion about what the Bible teaches regarding national borders and the proper role of government. Some of that confusion has been deliberately sown by secular left foundations and organizations infiltrating Christian institutions. Their goal is to discourage your vote at a time when Christians are being gilded for their participation in the political system and sometimes accused for idolatry for consistently supporting anti-abortion, pro-family, pro-America candidates. It's necessary for us to be reminded of our duty as Christians when it comes to the ballot box. My pastor and mentor, Dr. D. James Kennedy, was boldly speaking on this at a time when other pulpits were silent. He guides us with clarity on our biblical obligations as voters in this portion of his classic message, The Bible and Politics.
The Bible and Politics. Probably never in my lifetime, and not in yours, has there been such a controversy and furor of concern about the relationship of religion and politics. Hardly a week has gone by for the past year when we haven't heard something about it in the media. And I believe that the cause of all of this controversy has been that in the last decade or two in particular, the government in this country has been expanding the parameters of its interest and concern until now it has included within the borders of its own legislative and judicial enactments matters that at one time, for hundreds of years, in fact, were considered to be merely in the realm of morality or spirituality. And an attempt is being made concurrently with that expansion of government control to silence the religious protest. Well, why this governmental attack on religion, most particularly upon the Christian religion? Many people don't realize that in recent decades, for the last 50 years, there has been the growth of a new religion in America. A religion which declares that it is the religion of the future and that it is going to replace all other religions in the world. It is a religion which is very intolerant of the expression, especially in the public sphere, of any other religious view. I speak, of course, of the religion of secular humanism, which of course is indeed a religion and declares itself to be such 9 times in the Humanist Manifesto of 1933. And this religion of secular humanism, where man replaces God and man's own ideas become his ethics and morality, this religion which completely denies that there is any God who can save us, that we indeed must save ourselves, that there is any God who can mandate any moral standards for mankind, that we will create our own as we go. This religion has indeed declared a full-scale war on Christianity in America. And of course, these humanists have their own ethical agenda, an ethical agenda that seems to wrap itself around immorality and death, where what used to be called the old immorality is now called the new morality. Free divorce, gambling, pornography, homosexuality, free sex between consenting individuals of any age, and a love tryst with death. Well, what does the Bible say about our responsibility as citizens in this country and about government? Of course, Jesus Christ declared that we were to render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's and unto God the things that are God's. Therefore, it is our responsibility to do whatever good citizenship requires. It is always true that legislation is built upon morality, and morality is built upon religion. There is no escape from that fact. It was from the pulpits of New England that there thundered forth the great proclamations concerning liberty and freedom and the sovereignty of God and the nature of man, which led to the foundation of our Constitution and the American Revolution. Historians agree in that fact, and that still remains our job. And I would say to you this: it is a sin not to vote. Jesus Christ said this: render unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's. That means that we are to render unto the state whatever it is our proper responsibility as citizens of that state to render. And certainly in this nation, that includes at the very minimum the fact that we should get out and vote, and we should do a lot more. Now, what is a sin? A sin is any failure to obey a commandment given by God. That is what a sin is. A sin isn't whatever we would like to think it is. It is a disobedience of the commands of God. And God the Son said, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. If you don't do it, that, my friend, is a sin. Unfortunately, Christians by default have inherited a glorious patrimony, and they have allowed it to sift through their fingers like sand, until now we find ourselves in a great struggle even to maintain and to hold on to the glorious inheritance that we have in this country. And I hope the day will come when Christians will look upon apathy and indifference concerning their responsibilities as Christian citizens of this great nation as a base and iniquitous thing, and they would be ashamed to admit that they had failed to live up to their duty. And of course, we must continue to fulfill the great commission of Jesus Christ to take the gospel to every creature. That we must be not only the salt of the earth exercising its privileges in the kingdom of Caesar to prevent the nation from corrupting altogether, but we must be the light of the world to bring the light of the gospel and eternal life to men who are perishing in darkness and ignorance. We must do that. Now, there are some who would accuse us of trying to Christianize America. Am I trying to Christianize America? You bet your boots I am. What was the last commandment that Jesus Christ gave to the church? Go into all the world and make disciples of all nations. That, my friends, is our high and glorious calling. By the grace of God, may we do it.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Kennedy Cassidy. There was nobody bolder than my dad when it came to proclaiming the truth of the Bible for every sphere of life, including the government. While many others shrunk from the battle, telling Christians not to dirty their hands with politics, Coral Ridge Ministries has been there for 50 years now, sounding the warning about what will happen if we Christians retreat behind the four walls of the church. And we continue that battle today under my dad's successor, Dr. Rob Pacienza. This November, we'll have an election that very well may be do or die for America. It may be our last chance. That's why we've produced a new DVD that we want to send you in anticipation of that election entitled Righteousness Exalts a Nation. It features key messages on our current cultural situation and how Christians should respond from Dr. Rob Pacienza, Dr. Al Mohler, and my father, Dr. D. James Kennedy. We'll send it to you right away as thanks for your generous donation to the work of this ministry. And if you're able to give a donation of $50 or more, we'll send you the DVD plus the beautiful full-color collector's edition of the book, Miracles in American History by Susie Federer. In the past, we've offered volumes 1 and 2 of this great series, and we have not been able to keep them on the shelves. They've been among the most popular resources we've ever offered, and this special new edition combines them into one beautiful 288-page volume featuring 50 stories of God's miraculous intervention in America's history. From George Washington, who found 4 bullet holes in his coat and yet did not suffer an injury in battle, to the seemingly hopeless rescue of the Apollo 13 astronauts, you'll be edified and encouraged by these true stories of God's hand in our history. And you'll be encouraged for the future as we again seek His deliverance for our nation. You'll be thrilled by these stories, and you'll want to share them with your children and grandchildren. That's the brand new DVD program, Righteousness Exalts a Nation, featuring timely and incisive messages from Rob Pacienza, Al Mohler, and D. James Kennedy. And the DVD, plus the full-color gift edition of the book, Miracles in American History by Susie Federer, as thanks for your donation of $50 or more. With our nation standing at the precipice of this major election in November, the voice of Coral Ridge Ministries applying the Bible to the cultural controversies of today has never been more needed. And because producing and airing high-quality content is expensive, we can only do it with your help. Simply write to us at Coral Ridge Ministries, Box 11154, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33339, or call toll-free 877-962-7677, or go online to crm.tv.
One of the key tactics that progressives have used in recent decades to marginalize and silence Christians is the redefinition of language. Words like love, tolerance, and marriage have been given new meanings, all of which undermine the Christian witness. Perhaps the most egregious example of this is the redefinition of the word hate. In this new secular age, everywhere we turn, Christians are accused of hatred for affirming biblical teachings about gender, sexuality, Islam, the exclusivity of Christ, and other topics. If you don't get on board with woke ideas, you are committing hate crimes, opposing democracy, and are on the wrong side of history. In the United States, one of the most reliable purveyors of this false definition of hate is the Southern Poverty Law Center. The SPLC has for years demonized mainstream Christian nonprofits by putting them on par with the Ku Klux Klan and neo-Nazis. They focused in on House Speaker Mike Johnson in their 2023 report on extremism and hate. What was Johnson's crime? Having worked for the Alliance Defending Freedom. And their crime? Defending Colorado baker Jack Phillips, who has been the target of state harassment for years because baking cakes for same-sex weddings and gender transitions violates his Christian conscience. By the way, ADF has argued and won cases in the United States Supreme Court, but the Southern Poverty Law Center still puts them alongside skinheads and white supremacists. And this is not only an American problem. In Scotland, a pastor was arrested for allegedly using homophobic language when he was preaching the Bible on a street corner. The charges were dropped when he stood up in court and challenged them. In Finland, a member of parliament stood trial for so-called hate speech because she posted Romans 1 on social media and expressed her conviction that homosexuality is unnatural. She too was exonerated in court. But harassment is the goal for the woke progressives who want to intimidate Bible believers into silence. But let us be clear. As Christians, we believe Jesus is Lord, and by implication, Caesar is not. No matter how stiff the legal resistance we face in the coming years, we must not capitulate. In the words of Peter and the apostles, we must obey God rather than men. So let us not be intimidated into silence or conformity. Let us boldly proclaim the truth of God's word with love and grace, knowing that we answer to a higher authority and that viewed in light of Christ's triumphant return, we are on the right side of history. May we strive to be salt and light in a world that desperately needs the transformative power of Christ's love and redemption. May God grant us the strength and wisdom to uphold His truth in a world that often seeks to silence it. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We invite you to join us at Coral Ridge Presbyterian Church for worship the next time you're in South Florida. Or you can tune in via live stream at crpc.tv. And make sure to connect with us on social media at Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And finally, make sure to check out our new streaming site at watch.crm.tv, where you can find all of our programs, documentaries, podcasts, and much more. And now, here's a look at the next Truths That Transform.
As we look at the number of individuals coming across that border, they're from 150 different nationalities across the world. But we also see the vast majority of them being single adults, and those are men mainly, right? Those are military-aged men, anywhere from 17 to 35.
That's next week. This has been a production of Coral Ridge Ministries.